I finished cleaning up my shop and repainting all the walls, and in doing that, I got rid of a few things and I moved a few things around. One of the things I got rid of was the sanding station that was here that had this spindle sander on top. I moved this downdraft sanding table with all these drawers down here in its place, and I thought originally that this would work here, but I'm beginning to see that it's not going to work here. It's too high. First of all, it takes up too much space on here. I don't have enough room for these other two sanders. The idea is that I would be able to quickly take these off and use the surface like I did when it was up there to sand parts on. But I mean, if I've got to move this big thing as well, it's just not worth it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cabinet specifically for this sander. I got rid of the cabinet that it was on, but I kept the drawers that were in there, and these are them down here. These are 4, and the bottom one was the deepest. And what I think I'll do is I'll make the cabinet to fit these drawers so that at least I can reuse these. It's this piece of plywood in here that I'm interested in. I think this is big enough to get the entire cabinet from. I'm generally not a big fan of cutting full sheets on the table saw, but this is not a full sheet. I think there's something like 18 inches cut off the end, so I should be able to handle it. Next, I need to cut the side panels to 26 1/4. Now, this is kind of a tricky cut because the piece is so long here. I'm just using the fence, but as long as you're careful, it won't be a problem. Alright, now that I've got my parts cut out, I can start putting it together. I've got this kind of set up here so I can do it easy. I'm going to use construction adhesive as the glue, mainly because it works better with end grain, especially sheet good like this. Fills gaps and doesn't, sink into the grain of the wood like regular wood glue does. I'm just going to use that and 3 2-inch screws. Okay, that's the basic box construction done. I'll set it up here for a second and get an accurate measurement of the back panel. This box is basically 5 pieces: the top, the 2 sides, the back panel, which will prevent it from rocking, and there's also a stretcher that'll go across the front. Actually, it's 6 because there'll be a toe kick below that as well. But I need an accurate measurement between the sides, and that looks like 24 1/32. Okay, with the cabinet set up on the table saw again, I can try this and see how it fits. And it goes in there nice. Before I attach that, I want to cut down the back a little bit here. My idea for moving this is to have 2 wheels at the back here so that you'll be able to lift up on the front and pull it back on those 2 wheels. And then when you set it back down again, it'll be sitting on the sides so that it won't move around. To fasten the back, I'm just going to get glue on the underside of the top here. none on the sides. I don't think it's really needed. And drive in a few more 2-inch screws. Okay, I've moved the cabinet from the table saw over onto the workbench, and I'm going to cut out the toe kick and the stretcher that goes across the bottom. The toe kick itself is 2 3/4, and then the size of the stretcher really doesn't matter that much. I'm going to make it 4 inches though. I'm going to install the stretcher first. I've got one of my long wooden bar clamps out there just to squeeze the sides together to keep this from moving while I drive in a couple of screws. I didn't put any glue in here. I don't think it's needed. Where the toe kick meets the stretcher, I'm going to put a little bit of glue on there, just on the top though. My original cabinet used wooden slides, but I want to use these full extension metal slides for these. So I sized the cabinet to fit them, and to locate them, I'm going to use my drawer slide jig that I made last year around this time. And this works easily or simply by locating it on the side of the drawer, lined up at the bottom, and then there's screws in here that I'll just tap on that will mark the hole locations that line up to the screw locations in the slide itself. And then I can use the same thing inside the cabinet as well, just lining up the top of it with a mark that I'll put on the inside. Okay, that's the last of those. What I've got to do now is I've got to make the drawer fronts for them. I'm not going to show that though, because I'm going to make them exactly the same way as I made the drawer fronts on the miter saw station on the bottom. I really like that design with the solid wood banding around them and the pole built into the top. There'll be a link in the description to a video showing me making those. I finished all the drawer fronts, and now I'm getting ready to put them on. Basically what I'm going to do is start at the top here and just hold it up there, and I'm going to space it down. I'm just going to line it up by eye until it looks even. Now to attach these, I'm going to use screws from the inside, but to keep them lined up, I'm going to use pin nails. I could use double-sided tape, but I prefer to use these, especially for shop type projects. Just put one in on one side and then on the other side, and you can barely see that after it gets sanded and finished or whatever. Besides, like I say, it's a shop cabinet. Then all I need to do is open the drawer, and then I can drive screws from the inside. But before that, I'm going to get the rest of them put on. Now, I made these in order, and I've got numbers on the back, which I partially sanded away. Like I said, I'm going to use screws to solidly attach it to the drawer. All the drawer fronts are screwed on, and that's finished. I've got one other handle that I need to put on. Originally I was going to make it part of this up here, but I didn't think that that was actually, I don't know, bulky enough to grab. The idea here is that this handle will allow me to grab the cabinet, lift it up slightly, and pull it out, rolling on those back wheels, and then I can set it down again. I cut it to length and I trimmed off the end at that angle. And now I'm just going to fasten this on here with glue and two 2-inch screws right through the front. Now I could just glue this and skip the screws, but I'm in kind of a hurry. I want to get this done, so. Now that the cabinet is basically finished, I can move on to the wheels. I've got a piece of plywood here. This is a double layer of 1/2 inch. This is actually one of the drawer fronts from the original cabinet that I cut in half and glued together. I also laid out 2 circles on here that are 3 inches. I did that with my compact compass, and now I'm going to drill the axle hole in the middle with the 3/8 inch Forstner bit here in the drill press. I've got the cabinet up here on my workbench turned around so that I can work on the sides here. I've got the location for the wheel, the axle. The axle is just a 3/8 inch bolt. I think this is 2.5 inches. And the way this works is I've got 3 washers on the outside here, you could say, underneath the head, and then another one on the inside. And then there'll be a nut that goes on here as well, plus another washer, and all of that will thread into a T-nut that goes in from the outside of the cabinet. And that'll lock everything together and make everything turn freely. Now, before I can attach the wheel, I have to cut out a little bit of the cabinet there on the side so that the wheel will actually touch the floor when you lift it up. And of course, this would be a lot cleaner and neater if I had done it before I assembled the cabinet. That way I could have done it with the table saw or the chop saw even. Now I've got to use the jigsaw, which is okay, it does the job. Okay, I've got my T-nut put in up here. Just going to use a clamp to push it in the rest of the way. And then I can put the wheel on and actually see how it works. Okay, I wasn't happy with how much this smaller washer was digging into the side of the cabinet, so I've got these 2 much bigger but thinner fender washers that I'm going to use instead. And they'll spread the load better and keep everything straighter, I think. All right, although I've got quite a lot of confidence in this setup here, I would rather see some support on the outside of these bolts. So I've added this strip of solid wood here, and that'll support the ends of these bolts as they stick out. I don't know how much weight is eventually going to be in this cabinet, but the more that's in there, and then you tip it up and all the weight goes on these back wheels, they will try to bend up inside like this, so this will help to stop that. All right, I got the drawers put back in. I got the machine put on top of here and screwed down. And this is basically how it's going to work. You just grab the handle here, lift it up a bit and roll it ahead, and then drop it back down, and then it won't move because it's off of those wheels. And then when I'm done with it, I can just roll it back in. Since the majority of the parts that I sand on this are small, I don't anticipate having to move this out very often at all, maybe once a month. And I think most of the time that'll be to clean behind it or whatever. I have another idea for this station, I guess you could say, and that would be dust collection up here on the top, using the original vacuum that I had in the sanding station, mounted up inside this cabinet up here. Very similar to the one I have in the miter saw station over here, except instead of being automatic, this one would have a simple switch on the outside. Flick it on, use it for this machine, and if need be, I can hook it up to the bandsaw as well and use it for that. But that's the topic of another project, and I'll leave this one off here.